So if we're looking at optimizing those specific training metrics, so when we're looking at the all-out sprints, that is like literally, I can't do anything more, right? That's the rate of perceived exertion is a 10 out of 10.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's the vomit scale. 10
It's
means vomiting. We used to say that in our labs in undergrad. It's like, because all we had was RPE scales and thermal comfort and stuff. So it's like we renamed the RPE the rating of puke exertion. So it's like, okay, yeah. How hard can you
the
go?
one where you actually get physically stopped. Do you not find like you're trying to carry on and you just can't, like your body just goes, no.
No. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's the 10 out of 10. I think some of the others are a bit harder because when you look at, like, for example, the 4x4, you've got to maintain it for 4 minutes, right? So this is not a 10 out of 10 because you won't maintain it, but it's an 8 or 9 out of 10. This is probably the harder one for people to know that they're going hard enough.
You want to be able to pace yourself. You want to start a 4x4 at like a 7, where you're like, yeah, it's a bit difficult, but I probably could pace up a little bit more. And you want to finish at an 8 to 9. So your paces might not be increasing as you're going, but the effort and intention is there. So you're not dying off on the last of the 4 minutes, because you'll see people go balls to the wall hard and they're like, I'm going to hit this. And after 1 minute, they're dying. It's like, no, we have to think about the big carpet you're rolling out. It gets faster at the end. So if we're talking about a rating of perceived exertion, if you're thinking about 1 and 2 is just getting up and walking around, getting coffee. And then if we're thinking about a 3 or 4, that might be going out in a nature walk. We start to hit 5 or 6. That's when the kids are yapping in the background. You're trying to focus on a meeting and you feel your heart rate coming up.
That one?
Yeah, that one that so many people live in. Or, you're late, so you're running to catch the tube. And so you're like, it's that little stress orientation that's driving the heart rate up. So then when we get into focus training in a 4x4, your 4 minutes is consistent pressure. So you're like, okay, this is hard work, but I know I can do it for 4 minutes, because then I have 3 minutes of really just like spinning the legs out, walking, bringing the heart rate down, enjoying where I am before I have to do another 4 with purpose. So when we talk about rating of perceived exertion, it's also how you feel on the day. Because if you have a workout that's scheduled and you're like, oh, I don't feel 100%, but I still want to do this workout, then your workload might not be that same intensity as it was 2 weeks ago, but your rating perceived exertion is going to be. So there's a little variability in there too.
Which actually is important, right? Because if it feels harder, it is harder for you on that
Exactly.
day, right? Yeah,
exactly.
I think actually
and
that's better.
Yeah, and it's all reflective of that stress resilience.
So when we see science, quite often you're like, you'll see things on Instagram places and it goes, studies show that moderate intensity exercise has this effect. This is where for me it just feels really vague, because what's moderate?
Right. I know. So if we're looking at where that origin of the term moderate intensity, it comes from a lot of the governing bodies. So your BASIS, your ACSM, American College of Sports Medicine, your British Association of Sport and Exercise, they're trying to give guidelines for general population. So if we're talking about what is moderate exercise for someone who's never done anything, getting up and going for a walk and getting out of breath and maintaining that out of breathness for 10 to 15 minutes, that's moderate exercise. That's moderate intensity. For someone who's training, it doesn't really fit in, because if we're thinking about moderate exercise, that tends to be in that gray zone where we don't want to be. We want to be able to polarize. So when we're talking about that modern, it is very vague, but just know that it is because we have to think about the bell curve and how are we going to fit the most information in this bell curve of people. So we have to think about the active woman as a small slice that has its own bell curve within the big bell curve. So when we talk about moderate intensity, they're pulling from general population that doesn't have a training history and making them get out of breath and hold it there.
Okay, so we're just looking then, when it looks at things like dementia risk, for example, we're just seeing that women who were a bit more active and went out and walked their dogs and things like this seem to have better results.
Exactly. Movement is medicine.
Yeah.
We've heard that forever. And now the literature and the data is coming out and showing that the human body is designed to move in all levels, from low intensity to high intensity. But movement is what causes the stress on the body to adapt, to survive or to survive, and survive well. And the more that you permeate that stress, so we look at the hormetic stress, right? And we want to perturb it to high intensity, body's going to respond. It doesn't like to be in this really flat algorithm of we're not going to challenge the body at all. And that's, I think, why we're now seeing all this literature coming out about how powerful exercise is, because so much of Western society is just in this kind of placid, I don't want to be uncomfortable. I live in the same temperature room. I sleep in the same kind of bed. I have water or beverages available. I have food available. And they're never really stressed. The body's never really pulled out of that comfort.
When we look at the high intensity work, is there any qualification that we need to give people to get medical sign off before doing this? And the reason that I ask about this is just because something very strange happened to me recently that I didn't know about. And then I found like 2 clients have discovered this. So it must be more common than I had thought. So for example, it seems that, and this is as a result, they think of pregnancy, that increased blood volume played a part in this. That I now have a leaking heart valve. And so what they're saying is be careful about going very intense. I actually still do because I enjoy it. And their cutoff actually didn't seem that helpful, because what they were saying is don't go over 85 to 95%. But actually, as we've just been discussing, like 4 minutes at 85 to 95%, I feel puts way more pressure than 20 seconds at 100%, because it's going on so long and I can feel it and it's harder. Do you know what I mean? So it seems a little bit arbitrary, but doctors are not exercise physiologists, and it just happens to have come up quite a lot. I'm curious as to whether you think there's any kind of warnings or risks associated with this for certain people.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we want everyone to kind of phase in and do that longer stint of trying to prepare the body for that higher intensity work. That I don't want anyone to jump in right away and start doing high intensity work, because you might have an underlying idiopathic heart issue or something that you need to get checked out, and it won't come out until you start pushing. But if you have a base of that baseline fitness, then it's not going to affect you as much as if you just jump right in. I mean, we see this in male population, especially men who are in their early 40s, when they start doing like contrast, like cold ice water or really hot sauna, is they get into VTAC or some other cardiac issue, because it's right at the time where we're starting to see some cardiac changes in the male heart. So they normally think they're invincible. They've been training all this time, and then all of a sudden they get to an extreme and they're like, whoa, my heart's in VTAC. So there are some nuances as we get older, but the best way is to build that foundation first before you start adding heavier load. And that heavier load isn't just resistance training, it's that higher intensity work too.